Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump delaying strikes on Iranian power plants, saying there's a serious chance of making a deal with the regime. And the president touting the successes of the Memphis Safe Task Force. ICE agents begin deploying to airports today to help with TSA staffing shortages. It comes as lawmakers are still not close to reaching a deal to fund the DHS. 2 people were killed after an Air Canada flight collided with a fire truck at Laguardia Airport in New York City. We're expecting a press conference soon from Transportation Secretary Shen. ICE urging Chicago not to release an illegal immigrant accused of killing an 18-year-old girl. What President Trump says about the tragic murder. Brent crude oil prices slumped more than 5% as proposed U.S. strikes on Iranian power plants are called off, and the talks to end the war are underway. Financial markets reacting. The State Department launches a new bureau to counter emerging cyber threats to U.S. national security. The announcement comes amid the ongoing conflict with Iran. Supreme Court justices today finding out why a state voting law counts mail-in ballots received days after federal election day. Arlene Richards has the details.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Thank you for joining us. President Trump ordering the War Department to delay strikes on Iranian energy sites, citing productive talks with the regime. He says those talks will continue throughout the week. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu at the White House. Mari, good afternoon.
Hey, Don, good afternoon. That's right. President Trump saying that he's going to postpone those strikes against Iran's energy infrastructure and their power plants for 5 days. And he's citing their, quote, good and productive negotiations with the regime over the past 2 days regarding a, quote, complete and total resolution of the hostilities in the Middle East. The president says that those discussions will continue today. He says likely by phone, and then they will meet soon to continue those discussions. Take a look.
So we are now having really good discussions. They started last night, a little bit, the night before that, and I think they're very good. They want peace. They've agreed they will not have a nuclear weapon, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll see. You have to get it done. But I would say there's a very good chance. And it began when I said that I won't be. We were planning tomorrow on shooting down some of their power plants, and we're going to hold that up.
And Don, after ordering that 5-day halt of strikes against Iran's energy infrastructure, the price of crude oil dropped significantly, over 10%, while the Dow jumped over 800 points. And President Trump, meanwhile, says that the U.S. has eliminated all of the Iranian regime's leaders and has annihilated their defense industrial base.
So, Mari, that's certainly a lot to look out for there. But closer to home, President Trump in Tennessee this afternoon holding a roundtable on the Memphis Safe Task Force. Talk to us. What is the latest on that?
Sure, Don. Yeah, so President Trump, along with some key cabinet members, was in Memphis today touting the successes of that task force. That's a multi-agency initiative launched by the Trump administration in late 2025 to reduce violent crime in Memphis by surging extra law enforcement from federal agencies, state partners, and the local Memphis police force there. The White House has been announcing that since the task force began, there have been north of 7,400 arrests, over 1,200 illegal firearms seized, and over 150 missing children who have been safely returned to their families. And the overall crime in Memphis has been down more than 45% compared to the same time period last year. Take a look.
We want to be tough. We want to be strong on crime because that's the thing. We want to have heart. We want to have fairness, but we have to be tough. Since I took office, we have successfully arrested or removed from the country over 500,000 hard-line criminals. And under our leadership last year, the murder rate nationwide saw the single largest decline ever recorded to the lowest level in 125 years.
We've experienced multiple burglaries in our home, and it wasn't just the material things that were stolen. It was our sense of security, our peace, our livelihood. And that violence just wasn't inside of our home, it was all around us. We've reached out for help. For years, we looked to our local leaders hoping that something, anything would change, but nothing did. And that was until you, my president, stepped in. In a matter of weeks, we felt a difference. My children can go outside and play in our backyard again, and for the first time in 5 years, I don't hear any gunshots in my neighborhood. It's like a whole new world. That silence means everything to me.
Meanwhile, Don, President Trump just announcing that the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, has just signed a directive to ensure that all National Guard members that serve on the Memphis task force, as well as Guard members in D.C. and New Orleans, as well as on the border, will receive the same benefits as active duty troops. Back to you.
Okay, Mari, thank you. President Trump saying today he ordered a 5-day pause on U.S. strikes against Iranian energy sites. Meanwhile, the State Department is renewing a worldwide caution alert, warning that Iran groups may target Americans. Joining us now to discuss is Andrew Harding, Senior Associate for National Security Coalitions at the Heritage Foundation. Andrew, so good to have you here. Good afternoon. So President Trump earlier today said the U.S. had productive talks with Iran. Here's a look at what he said.
We have had very, very strong talks. We'll see where they lead. We have major points of agreement. I would say almost all points of agreement. So the discussions took place yesterday. They went into yesterday evening. They want very much to make a deal. We'd like to make a deal too. We're going to get together today by probably phone, because it's very hard to find a country. It's very hard for them to get out, I guess. But we'll at some point very, very soon meet. We're doing a 5-day period. We'll see how that goes. And if it goes well, we're going to end up with settling this. Otherwise, we'll just keep bombing our little hearts out.
So, Andrew, some outlets are saying that President Trump is walking back on his 48-hour ultimatum. But this is President Trump's style. We've seen that with the tariffs, the stop-and-go nature of negotiations. And, it has worked out for President Trump. Your reaction to the latest move by the president?
Well, good afternoon. I think this move is a focus on the president taking a strategic pause, which provides the United States a lot of new leverage without losing any for Iran. Specifically, first, Iran is willing to come to the table due to how successful Operation Epic Fury has been, because the Iranians understand that the United States, under President Trump's direction, can absolutely take out its energy infrastructure, like the president said, with one shot. That means the Iranians take the United States' threats very seriously, and they're willing to enter in the sub-negotiated settlement if that's an acceptable pathway that the president allows. But it shows then that the Iranians are going to be very concerned with what the United States can do, as President Trump may order it. And the president made clear he can authorize these strikes if he so needs to, and if he believes diplomacy doesn't go down the right path. But secondly, it also allows the United States more time to reduce concerns over prices of the oil market, while also increasing, say, Marines or different options that can come into theater that the president can deploy to advance American national security interests. So I think this is a move that allows the United States to maximize its leverage and to keep the force on the Iranians to finally come to the table with meaningful diplomacy.
So then, to your point, what is the likelihood that Iran will agree to Trump's terms now compared to before the war started, now that Iran has seen what the U.S. is capable of? So, I mean, in relative terms, is Iran more likely now than before to come to the negotiation table?
I think so. I think Operation Epic Fury has forced Iran to be in a much weaker position than it ever could have imagined just a few weeks ago. It certainly helps when on the very first day you're able to take out the Ayatollah and dozens of Iranian leaders, and as a result, put the Iranians in a very difficult position of losing their missiles to fire. They're having a reduction in the amount of drones they have available. They no longer have a full arsenal of launchers, ultimately having about maybe 70% of that arsenal depleted. And at best, the Iranians can attempt to hold the Strait of Hormuz at risk, which they have some ability to do, but by no means do they have the necessary armed forces to successfully continue that week after week with these continued operations coming from Operation Epic Fury. So I think due to this strike, due to the operation that the president in combination with the Israelis have orchestrated, I think Iran is in a weaker position. The United States is much stronger. And I think that's how we're finally seeing some diplomatic breakthroughs that are actually to the interest of President Trump.
Okay, so you're saying Iran is in a weaker position. Let me ask you this, because semi-official Iranian news agency, Mir News, reported that the Iranian Foreign Ministry said there's no dialogue between Tehran and Washington. But the President Trump says the U.S. did have talks. So, I mean, the obvious conclusion here is that one side is telling the truth, one side is not telling the truth. But if you look at what Iran has done, Andrew, Iran is releasing fake AI videos. It's making false official statements, amplifying, fabricated victories. Remember, it said that it shot down a U.S. fighter jet. So if I were to choose one side to trust, I would trust the U.S.
Well, I think you're making the correct choice there. And I think if you listen to President Trump's comments on the tarmac, it sounds pretty believable. It sounds like this has been a multi-day process, not to mention the multiple weeks and months of potential talks that have occurred in Switzerland or elsewhere. But over the weekend, the president articulated what occurred, that there's been some discussions. He made clear that there's different individuals he may be talking to. There's been some reports about what could potentially be a summit or an in-person gathering in the days or weeks ahead. So I think all signs indicate that President Trump is telling the truth. And exactly to your point, that Iran does not have a good track record of telling the truth here. They're obviously trying to grasp as many straws as possible to demonstrate strength. We know that the current Ayatollah has yet to be seen. We've only seen some statements come out, but he's not even leading the country he's supposedly been elected to represent. So there's some concerns coming out of Iran here, but I'm very much focused on President Trump's statements and believing that at this point, Iran may be willing to give some serious, credible concessions that is going to advance American national security interests.
So what does Iran stand to gain by denying President Trump's statement that they're having conversations?
I think what they're trying to do is demonstrate some level of strength internally. Certainly, it's fair to say that the regime is not doing a good job in fighting against this war. The United States and Israel, within the first week, sunk most of the Iranian Navy, was able to establish almost complete air superiority, and is freely dropping bombs as need be on identified targets that are either oppressing the Iranian people or pose a threat to the United States, Israel, and the Middle East. And as we've increasingly learned over the weekend, having potential missiles that could hit across Europe. With a potential strike that was launched at a joint U.S.-UK base in Diego Garcia. So I think Iran is trying to do everything it can to project confidence at home, but make no mistake, I think President Trump sees through this. He knows that they have no leverage, and this is now the time for the United States to continue the military campaign that squeezes Iran into ultimately giving the necessary concessions that supports American national security interest, and we can see an end to this conflict soon.
All right, Andrew, with that, I have another clip here of President Trump speaking about a regime change. Let's take a look.
And there'll also be a form of a very serious form of a regime change. Now, in all fairness, everybody's been killed from the regime. They're really starting off. There's automatically a regime change. But we're dealing with some people that I find to be very reasonable, very solid. The people within know who they are. They're very respected. And maybe one of them will be exactly what we're looking for. Look at Venezuela.
Now, Andrew, I could be wrong here, but I believe this is the first time President Trump actually explicitly confirming a regime change. What is your reaction?
Well, I think the president's been very clear that he's going to maximize American security interests, which means preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, preventing Iran from having a ballistic missile system that can hit the continental United States, and preventing Iran from projecting power with its terrorist proxies or Navy or Air Force in the region. I think that's always been the president's focus. So when it comes to conversations about regime change, that isn't the priority. But if there can be a scenario in which there are members of the regime that are more practical, that are more willing to work with the president, and it sounds like the president is optimistic that there may be one or some that are forming that are willing to work closely with the president and make ironclad guarantees that are in America's security interests, then there may be a possibility of a breakthrough here. But I think time will tell about what the regime ultimately looks like. At the end of the day, as long as we're able to see some type of solution that puts America in a safer and stronger position, I think that's something the president will appreciate.
All right, Andrew, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Just one more comment from you on the State Department saying that it is renewing a worldwide caution alert, warning that Iran supporting groups may target Americans. Is this a primarily precautionary move, or is it something credible, suggesting of credible intelligence or imminent threats?
Well, I think it's always important to be very precautious when it comes to Iran. We know that it is the world's largest state sponsor of terror and has supported the killings of hundreds and over thousands of Americans around the world, as well as we just saw over the past few weeks since the operation, multiple terrorist attacks with anti Semitic roots, as well as an intent to bring harm to the American people, shows that Iran is very much attempting to project to those that are sympathetic to the regime around the world to hurt the American people. So, absolutely, the American people should be very safe. They should be alert within their homes and communities. But certainly, if they're traveling abroad, as the State Department said, especially if you're in the Middle East, this is not new, but the conflict has heightened these concerns. And I trust the president and the U.S. armed forces around the world to keep the American people safe as we continue to see this operation move forward.
Okay, Andrew, so good to speak with you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
NATO is putting together a group of over 20 countries to help President Trump reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Various European leaders also say they welcomed the president's decision not to attack energy sites in Iran. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has the latest on multinational involvement in the Iran war.
I know there is a lot of debate in the US and in Europe whether this campaign of the president against Iran was necessary. And let me tell you, it is. It is crucial that the president, that the US is doing this.
NATO chief Mark Rutte telling Fox News that he supports Operation Epic Fury against Iran. Rutte also announces a new NATO plan to support President Trump.
The good news here is that since Thursday, a group of 22 countries, most of them from NATO, but also Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, the UAE and Bahrain, most of the other countries from NATO, coming together to implement his vision of making sure that the Strait of Hormuz is free, is opening up.
Be a very long stay.
President Trump on Monday saying he won't attack energy sites in Iran, as he previously warned he might if Iran doesn't reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The foreign policy chief of the European Union weighing in on that decision.
The recent statement that there will be no attacks on energy infrastructure is a very welcome development. I think any attacks on infrastructure, are causing chaos.
The Chancellor of Germany on Monday making similar remarks.
I am grateful that he said today that he is postponing this by a further 5 days and is now also opening up the possibility of immediate and direct contact with the Iranian leadership.
And U.S. aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford arriving in Greece on Monday. The vessel was deployed in operations against Iran when a fire broke out in the ship's main laundry area. It will dock at a NATO base in Greece for now, although it's not yet clear for how long. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
The mayor of London says today is a dark day for Britain's capital city. An Iran-aligned group attacked 4 Jewish community ambulances in North London. The Citing intelligence website says the Islamic Movement of the People of the Right Hand claims responsibility for the attack. The multinational group is aligned with the Iranian regime. London Mayor Sadiq Khan condemns the attack, saying the city will increase police presence in areas with a higher concentration of Jewish residents. According to the London Fire Brigade, multiple cylinders on the ambulances exploded, shattering nearby windows. No injuries are being reported and no arrests have been made. Police are now beginning a forensic search of the crime scene. Financial markets reacting positively to the news that strikes against Iran's energy infrastructure have been postponed for 5 days for now, and talks with Iran are said to be going well. Oil prices also going down. Joining us now to break this down, we have Tim Dosher, Executive Director of Unleash Prosperity Now. So Tim, good to see you again. I think you were right. I mean, it's a little bit early to say, but I think you were right that with any sign that this war is going to end, prices will come down.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a welcome sign to the market, clearly. We don't need to rehash all the good numbers today, but I think it absolutely shows, one, that President Trump is in the catbird seat right now. You saw the interesting response from President Trump saying, hey, we're having good talks. And Iran comes out and says, no, we're not. We're not having any of those talks. And that right there is a sign of weakness. It's a sign of trying to claw back any sort of control in the situation. And I think that that is a sign of weakness. And I think it's a sign that Iran really does not have that many options right now, especially since their almost entire military capacity has been completely annihilated and neutered. So I do think that the talks are happening. I don't think Trump would just come out and make something up like that. But since it is happening, it does also show that President Trump is willing to talk. And that is a huge sign and a very, very level-headed thing in the heat of a war.
And I just have to point out, I mean, just look at Iran's track record. You have to take what the Iranian side says with a grain of salt, and that's an understatement, because if you look, the fake AI videos, right? Iran claiming that it shot down U.S. fighter jets, when in reality that never happened. So you have to take a grain of salt when considering what Iran says.
That's such a great point, Don. And by the way, thank you for telling me that I was right. You know, not many people tell me that. I'm still waiting for my wife to tell me, but I'm not holding my breath. But I will say that when you look at, you know, all of the things on the ground, all of the things that are happening there, I really do want to bring mention to the fact that President Trump also is not leading because we're doing so well in Iran. He's leading because what's happening here at home with our own production and our own supply of liquid fuels as well as crude oil here. We are producing 24 million barrels a day. That's more than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. We are in a place of power with this, not just in militarily, but economically. Our prices have not spiked like they did back in 2022 when the inflation was happening under Biden. They have not spiked like they have in the past because President Trump's energy dominance policy is actually driving these markets in the face of all of this uncertainty that's happening. We have to make mention of that. And by the way, Iran knows that, and it's another thing that they have to reckon with.
And that has perplexed me a little bit, because the U.S. is so dominant in energy, it doesn't really need the Strait of Hormuz. Other countries need the Strait of Hormuz, like Japan, China, Europe to some extent. Maybe you can give us your comments on this. Why would these countries not want to help the U.S. secure their own energy supply?
Well, look, that's the $1 million a barrel question right there, Don, and it's a difficult one to answer, because remember, oil is a global commodity. It's a global market for the price of oil. You know, what goes through that strait affects the price and what we pay here. We can be as energy dominant as possible, but that price is still going to be affected by what happens there. So it is in our interest to ensure that those ships continue to move. It's the reason why President Trump eased up those sanctions on Iran. It's the reason why he eased up those sanctions on Russia, to kind of get that oil flowing and get it back into the market, because it does affect us here abroad. But then again, you know, look, it's one of those things that you have to keep into perspective. It isn't just about us. But I will say this. Our allies, you know, President Trump has made mention of it. Our allies have said that they want to help, but they actually do have to step it up, or I think we're going to see President Trump making a bigger stink out of this, Don.
So, Tim, as you know, President Trump initially said he gave Iran 48 hours to open the Strait of Hormuz, and now he's delaying that to about 5 days. Some outlets are criticizing Trump for walking back his initial 48 hours. But this is President Trump's style. We've seen that with the tariffs. He would pause the tariffs, he would start the tariffs, he would pause it again, and he's been said to be the greatest deal maker. So just give us your thoughts on President Trump's latest move here with the 5-day delay.
Well, first of all, I trust President Trump. I really do. You're right. He is the great deal maker. He can do this. There's no question about it. And the other thing is that he actually cares about the Iranian people, not the leadership, the leadership that's gone absolutely crazy off the deep end. But he cares about the Iranian people, and he wants to see them and their voices represented. So I do think a pause in that 48-hour pause and then the 5-day extension is a good thing. It just shows that he's willing to talk. As we mentioned, he's willing to negotiate, which the markets do like. But just remember, he did not say that we're stopping the bombing and the total annihilation of their military equipment abroad. He just said that they are not going to do critical infrastructure like power plants and desalination plants. That's a big thing, because Israel and the U.S. can continue to do this while at the same time maintaining that level-headed, we're willing to talk demeanor that he has here. So I do think that, Don, this really does look as, as if, we're in the reasonable department here, and Iran can be the ones to catch up and come into the more reasonable department. We are the reasonable ones, not them.
Right. And President Trump earlier today commenting on the talks between the U.S. and Iran. Let's just take a quick listen to that.
The discussions took place yesterday. They went into yesterday evening. They want very much to make a deal. We'd like to make a deal, too. We're going to get together today by probably phone, because it's very hard to find a country. It's very hard for them to get out, I guess. But we'll at some point very, very soon meet. We're doing a 5-day period. We'll see how that goes. And if it goes well, we're going to end up with settling this. Otherwise, we'll just keep bombing.
So the talks with Iran started before the war actually began, right? Weeks before, if not months. And now they're having talks again. In your view, do you think Iran is now in a more likely situation to actually agree to the terms that President Trump has laid out, given the fact Operation Epic Fury has been such a success and Iran seeing what the U.S. military is capable of?
Well, just remember why we went into Iran, and that being a sort of a line that you will not allow Iran to move, and that is no nuclear weapons, no long-range ballistic missiles. You are done with that threat, and we are going to completely take that from you. So I don't think that there's going to be negotiation on a point like that. I think when you see President Trump talking, by the way, it's funny, Don, if you think about what Trump said, I think they want to make a deal. We're going to give it some time. It's almost like he's talking about a real estate deal in Manhattan. It's very, very similar to how he would talk when he would go out and talk about the state or the city holding him up from a deal. And that is exactly it. He's got his eye on the prize. He wants what he wants. We want what he wants, as you can see from the polling. And that right there is exactly what Iran has to come to reckon with, Don. I think that they absolutely will have to make the deal. And I think it's going to have to be something they don't want to give, which is exactly what Trump is wanting from them. So we'll let this play out. We'll see how it goes. But again, I don't think Trump is going to compromise on those absolute red line things that he laid out before he started dropping bombs.
Right. And those are no nuclear weapons, no missiles.
That's right.
No extending terror sponsorship beyond its borders. And we'll see how it goes. And President Trump today actually talking about a regime change, confirming, I believe, for the very first time. Maybe just your final thoughts on the idea of a regime change.
Well, I think the markets would love to not have a threat in the Middle East. I think that Americans would feel a lot safer if they didn't have the leading state sponsor of terror still in control, still in power, money still flowing into that country, funding Hezbollah, funding, a lot of the attacks that were happening in Iraq when we were there. A lot of that came from Iran. And so I think everybody would love to see that happening, or that their ability to be completely stripped away. And so I do think that this is a huge moment in our time and in our country. And I think that globally speaking, President Trump is not just trusted by our allies, even though there is some tension there, but I also think that he is feared by our enemies, including China and Russia. They are definitely on notice in this situation.
And Tim, you can show your wife this clip of me telling you that you're right. I think it may give you some boost there. Okay, thank you so much, Tim, for speaking with me.
Will do, Don. Thank you. Have a great day.
You as well. Flights at New York's LaGuardia Airport were canceled and delayed Monday following an overnight ground collision involving an Air Canada Express aircraft and a Port Authority fire truck. NTD's Sean Marshall has more information.
An Air Canada jet struck a fire truck in LaGuardia Airport in New York in the late night Sunday. The plane is still on the tarmac, just barely in view from where we are. The fire truck was responding to another plane that was reporting a strange odor on board. Pilot and co-pilot did not survive the crash, but a flight attendant is being described as a miracle survivor. She was ejected from the plane. First responders found her still strapped into her jump seat on the tarmac outside the airplane, still alive. As for the fire truck, it was cleared to drive forward and then frantically ordered to stop. Here's that audio.
Stop, truck one. Stop. Stop, truck 1, stop. Del 2603, go around, runway heading 2000.
Passengers had to wait it out last night without much answers.
So it's one of the worst situations because they were not even able to rebook me to another flight or to a different airport like JFK or Newark International Airport. Henceforth, I had to do my work remote again for the next 2 days, I guess.
It's definitely concerning during this shutdown. If there's so many staff shortages, we can't really ensure that everybody's, where they need to be or doing what they are supposed to if they're handling all these different things. One person's doing the job of like 5 people, so we just never know.
I'm trying to see if there is any other alternative and possibly drive 10 hours back to Ohio, so yep.
Around 40 passengers and crew members were taken to area hospitals, some with serious injuries. Most have since been released from treatment, authorities said Monday.
We understand and appreciate that people are seeking information. Please know that we will provide information as it is verified and cleared by the authorities for release. All our official statements and updates will be posted to our website, aircanada.com, and to Air Canada's official social media channels.
Well, it's been chaotic to say the least. I came in from California doing some book signings here for some of my big titles. Came in last night, my signing was tonight, and early this morning realized that things are not happening. You can't get an Uber, blah, 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 so I had to call the bookstore and say, well, let's push it for tomorrow. But this is chaotic. We don't know who's at fault until the NTSB investigates, and that could take a while based on the investigation. But it's, LaGuardia's been shut down for 3 times in the last 2.5 months. So, we don't know.
LaGuardia Airport, which opened to commercial traffic in 1939, covers 680 acres and borders Flushing and Bowery Bays in Queens. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey describes it as one of the nation's leading domestic gateways for business and leisure travel in its 2024 Airport Traffic Report. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is holding a press conference right now at New York City's LaGuardia Airport about last night's collision. Let's tune in.
All here with us. Each is going to speak in regard to this press conference. When this is over, we'll take your questions, but just want to give you a caveat. There may be a lot of questions about a lot of issues. We are here to talk about what happened last night at LaGuardia. So if you have other questions, please don't ask them. That's a different press conference for a different time. So moments ago, I had a chance to speak to President Trump after he finished his press conference in Memphis. Also spoke with the Transport Minister of Canada, Stephen McKinnon, and again, our 2 teams work very closely together. I want to take a moment and just walk through the facts again of what happened. There was a CJR 900 from Montreal here to LaGuardia, operated by Air Canada Express and by Jazz. It collided with a Port Authority fire truck at approximately 11:45 p.m. last night. There were 72 passengers on the plane and 4 crew. Approximately 40 people were sent to the hospital after the crash. Several have also been released. As has been reported, the 2 pilots of the aircraft passed away in the crash last night. I do want to note that we send our deepest condolences to their families as they're going through, no doubt, a grieving process. There were 2 individuals in the fire truck. They too were sent to the hospital after the crash. Now, there's going to be a lot of questions, I know, about what do we know at this time. And what we are going to do is give you the information that we can. We all have the respect for the NTSB. The NTSB goes through a thorough investigation, and we are conscious about the information and the facts that we give you because we want that information to be accurate. There's some information that we hold back that the NTSB has that we allow them to do the investigation, and it takes months, sometimes up to a year before we get the findings of that investigation. But NTSB is on the ground at the airport. The FAA is on the ground. Over 10 people from the FAA are here, as well as Transport Canada is sending a team to LaGuardia as well. Our two countries work very well together. There's a well-worn path where we collaborate together when there's aviation crashes in either of our countries. The administrator and I were at the crash site earlier today, which is easily visible from the airport, and it's incredibly sad. It's troubling, and I just want to let America know that we are working our hearts out to make sure that when people travel, whether by rail or car or by air, that they travel safely. And we put in precautions and policies to make sure that you are safe when you travel. When I was at the crash site, it was just a reminder that when you're traveling by air, you should wear your seatbelt. If you see the videos of the air crash, wear your seatbelt when you're on the airplane. Also, in a car, wear a seatbelt. As you see from last night, they do save lives. I'd also note that as of now, LaGuardia is open. There is a reduced capacity because the aircraft and the fire truck are still in their positions from last night. So we are going to have reduced capacity for some time, but the airport is operational. Again, we'll come back and take your questions, but at this time I want to turn it over to the FAA Administrator, Brian Bedford.
Thank you, Secretary Duffy. Again, I want to extend my deepest sympathies on behalf of the 44,000 men and women of the Federal Aviation Administration. We take our responsibilities quite seriously, managing the safety of the air traffic control system and the national airspace. So we're deeply moved by the tragedy of last night. Been in contact with the leadership teams of both Air Canada and Air Canada Jazz to express our sympathies, as well as my peer at Transport Canada. And of course, we are a supporting agency in the investigation now. The National Transportation Safety Board is running the investigation. So there are few facts we're going to be able to share with you today. What I can share with you, of course, the weather conditions last night were moderate winds out of 050 at 7 knots. We had broken ceilings at 9,000 feet. Visibility roughly 4 miles in raining conditions, so there was mist and fog here at the LaGuardia Airport last night. We had a situation with United Airlines aircraft that had experienced an aborted takeoff. This is the reason why the fire and rescue crew had been deployed. Of course, the Air Canada flight was arriving on runway 4 when the incident took place at the Delta intersection. Again, I want to extend my sympathies to the families of the two pilots. These were two young men at the start of their careers, so it's an absolute tragedy, that we're sitting here, with their loss. So my heart really goes out to the families for sure. But we are committed to a full, transparent investigation. We will support the NTSB in any way possible. And again, we look forward to being able to take concrete actions to ensure something like this will never happen again. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Garcia, Executive Director of the Port Authority, and I want to add our voice to those that you've heard before and share our deepest sympathies with the families of the captain and the first officer who passed away last night. The Port Authority takes great pride in being able to work with all of our partners to deliver safety for the flying public. And it has been over 34 years since we had an incident with a death at the airport. As the Secretary said, at approximately 11:40 last night, Air Canada Flight 8646, operated by Jazz Aviation, collided with a Port Authority aircraft rescue and firefighter vehicle on runway 4. The ARP vehicle carried Sergeant Orselio and Officer Baez. Both were taken to New York Presbyterian Hospital. We expect one to be released later this afternoon. and the other to be kept overnight for observation. And in accordance with our emergency plan, our mutual aid partners, the Fire Department of New York and the New York Police Department, immediately responded. They transferred over 43 people to the hospital during the evening, though many have been released at this time. At approximately 5:30 this morning, the airport reopened for passengers, and our first flight, a Delta flight, left about a minute after 2 this afternoon. Again, I want to share my deepest sympathies with the families. This could have been an even broader tragedy if everyone had not responded as quickly and effectively as they did. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to the governor, New York Governor Kathy Hochul.
Thank you, Catherine. While the facts of what happened last night at 11:45 p.m. were well known, yes, it was an aviation disaster, the likes of which we have not seen here in over 3 decades. But it's a deeply human story where 2 young pilots left their homes expecting to return to their families, and they will not. And this is what pains everyone here in the state of New York. I've conveyed our condolences to the Canadian government. I have walked the halls and gone up to Port Authority personnel and police, telling them how grateful we are that they put their lives out there every single day to make sure our traveling public is safe. So to the entire Port Authority and Laguardia family, I want you to know we are very cognizant of the traumatizing impact this has on you and indeed your own families. So I want to first convey my gratitude to all of you and sympathies to those who have had their lives shattered as a result of this and those who have sustained injuries. It's not what you expect when you get on an airplane. But also, I want to offer the full cooperation of New York State with the investigation. I'm grateful also to Secretary Duffy and Administrator Bedford for coming right here on this day. It's important to have your presence, to know that this will be addressed at the highest levels, and also support from the mayor, who represents many of the people who work here as I do. And Catherine Garcia, up until a short time ago, she was my top state operations officer in charge of every disaster, every crisis that has befallen the state of New York in the last 4 years. So she is a top consummate professional, and I have great confidence in her ability as well. So let me close with this. Let's acknowledge the tremendous stress, particularly in recent days, that our airline workers are under. And as we come through here, know that this is an ecosystem which is not self-sustaining. There are countless individuals who step up every day willing to do the hard work to make sure we're safe. And in my judgment, they all deserve gratitude, not just on this day, but as I often do walking through airports, just saying thank you with a heart full of gratitude for what they do to make our lives safer and better. Thank you. Mayor Zoran Mondami.
Good afternoon. I want to begin by echoing the words that have been shared before me, and also by thanking our partners in city, state, and federal government who are here today. As has been shared, late last night, a Jazz Aviation flight operating on behalf of Air Canada struck a Port Authority aircraft rescue and firefighting vehicle on runway 4 at LaGuardia Airport. Both pilots of the aircraft were killed in the crash. And I echo the words of the governor and those who spoke before in sending our deepest condolences to the families and to the many who are mourning their loss. I am grateful for the work of dedicated first responders, including the men and women from the NYPD, the FDNY, and NISM, who arrived on the scene within minutes, treated injuries, and handled a chaotic scene with incredible professionalism and poise. I also want to commend those who were thrust into a frightening accident and reacted not only with composure, but by extending a hand to the person next to them. Passengers who opened the emergency door and helped one another off the plane. People who kept one another calm. And I know that this crash has shaken New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, whether they are traveling today or simply watching from home, especially since it's the first fatal crash at LaGuardia in more than 30 years. I want New Yorkers to know that the National Transportation Safety Board is investigating the cause of this accident, and that we will not rest until the conclusion of that investigation. We have been coordinating closely with our partners across government since late last night, and we will continue to do so. Air Canada has set up a hotline for families and friends of the flight's passengers, and I encourage those who are worried about their loved ones to call. That number is 1-800-961-7099. While Laguardia was closed since the accident until 2 p.m. today, it has since reopened. I want to thank the many New Yorkers and visitors who had their travel plans impacted for their patience and their understanding, as well as those who work here at LaGuardia and the Port Authority for how they have not only responded to this accident, but the work that they do each and every day. As we continue to learn information, we will share it with you. And in the meantime, let us keep those who died in our thoughts and continue to hope for a quick recovery for those who were injured. Thank you.
And that was Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy with the press conference alongside New York officials saying that LaGuardia has reopened after a crash at the runway earlier. ICE officers are now helping TSA agents at several airports. Borders Czar Tom Homan says the officers are there to help alleviate long waits at security checkpoints. TSA expects staffing shortages to get worse as the Department of Homeland Security shutdown is in its 6th week. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has more.
Their number one mission there, as the president said, is help TSA with security, help move the flow of people through those lines.
White House Borders Czar Tom Homan confirms that ICE is helping TSA agents at 14 airports, including Atlanta, Chicago O'Hare, and New York JFK. They started helping on Monday morning, and Homan is overseeing the operation. Homan says ICE isn't focused on immigration enforcement at the airports, but will act if they come across something.
If they see criminal activity, law enforcement officers should take action.
President Trump says that the operation is going well so far.
They're going through a big struggle right now, and we just put ICE in charge, and they're helping TSA, the agents, and they're working together so far very well.
President Trump also says he wants to tie in funding for the Department of Homeland Security into the Save America Act and end the shutdown.
I'm tying Homeland Security into voter identification with picture and proof of citizenship in order to vote. And those two items are the most important thing having to do with Homeland Security. So it should be part of the Homeland Security bill.
The president also requests that the Senate do this immediately and not wait until after Easter. Jason Blair, NTD News.
And President Trump said he will deploy ICE agents to airports to help TSA agents. Joining us now to discuss is Andrew Arthur, Law and Policy Fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies and a former immigration judge. Andrew, always great to have you. Good afternoon. So can I just first off ask you, what does the law say about a president's ability to assign federal law enforcement to airports, for example, TSA agents getting help by ICE?
So it's important to note, Don, that ICE officers already operate at many, if not most, U.S. airports. They're there to provide key security, particularly ICE's Homeland Security Investigations Unit, who are tasked with looking for contraband that comes into the United States, individuals who are smuggling things into the United States, and basically providing general security for the airport itself. So ICE is already actively involved in the airports. With respect to reassigning federal officers, ICE agents are both authorized to enforce federal law. In fact, one of the discussions that came up during the incidents in Minneapolis was the general arrest authority of ICE officers. So they do have the ability to provide security, and they already work at the airport. So it makes sense that ICE would go there and help out their fellow agents in TSA.
So they still retain their full federal law enforcement powers at airports, for example, like questioning individuals about immigration status?
Absolutely. And in fact, they also possess full arrest authority with respect to any crime that is carried out in their presence. Jumping the line, attempting to run through a TSA checkpoint, those are all federal crimes that ICE has the ability to enforce under their general arrest authority under Section 287 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. So the president doesn't even need to give them any additional authority, but there is a significant amount of authority vested in the Secretary of Homeland Security to reassign agents, officers from one investigative duty of the department to another. And both TSA and ICE are within DHS.
Okay, so what are they not allowed to do? For example, are they allowed to look into your bags?
There are certain situations in which any federal officer is allowed to look into a bag. If you've ever been through a TSA checkpoint, I carry collar stays with me whenever I travel, and officers inevitably open it up to make sure it's not a knife. So, yeah, when you're at a TSA checkpoint, you basically have surrendered your Fourth Amendment right against searches and seizures. Nothing requires you to go through a TSA checkpoint. You just aren't able to fly if you refuse to do it. So, yeah, they do have the ability to check baggage, to maintain order, to arrest criminal suspects at the airports. And, this is simply the same authority that they already have.
Okay, so but TSA remains the lead agency at airports, right? Even with ICE there.
Absolutely. And ICE isn't going to do anything that TSA doesn't tell it to do. This is not, with respect to the actual inspection process, this is nothing that ICE officers are familiar with. It is another law enforcement duty, so it's one of those things that they plainly can do, but they would do it at the direction of senior TSA officials. In fact, if you ever go to the airport, if you look at the epaulets, you can see the gold stars. You can recognize the senior TSA agents who are at those checkpoints, and those are going to be the people that ICE takes its direction from.
Okay, Andrew, let me just get one more comment from you. And I want to focus on some of the Democrat demands here. That is keeping the DHS partially shut down. And that's the reason why ICE agents, or more of them at least, are going to airports. So one of them is they want judicial warrants for ICE agents. What does the law say on that? Are administrative warrants not enough for ICE to enter homes?
Yeah, and this is a great question, Don. I'm glad you asked it. It appears at this juncture that the demand from congressional Democrats is that ICE have a judicial warrant before they enter a home. Now, it's arguable as a legal issue that ICE can rely upon an administrative warrant coupled with a warrant of deportation. That's for somebody who's already gone through the judicial system. They've received due process. The only reason that ICE has an interest in them is to take them into custody and deport them. And as I mentioned, it's arguable that an ICE warrant is effective to do that. But during his confirmation hearing, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma, the DHS Secretary nominee, stated that he would only allow ICE officers to enter residences with judicial warrants. That's a political decision that he's made, again, in sort of a legal gray area. And I think that that's probably the appropriate decision to make. Now, Don, it's also important to note that there are always exceptions to the warrant requirement, even in the criminal situation. If a suspect is fleeing into the suspect's home, the officers in hot pursuit can follow the individual into that home. Or if somebody else in the home or the individual that they're looking for gives consent for the officers to enter the residence, they don't need to have a judicial warrant in that situation. They can go in. A warrant is sort of an accentuation of the Fourth Amendment, but there are lots of legal situations where a warrant is not required to enter a home. But yeah, Senator Mullen, Secretary nominee Mullen, has stated that they will seek judicial warrants, and that probably is a political matter. That's a good call.
Okay, well, thank you for explaining so simply and clearing things up for us on this issue. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thanks so much, Don. I look forward to the next time we're together.
Likewise. The Supreme Court today hearing arguments over Mississippi's mail-in ballot law. The law allows ballots to be received days after Election Day. NTD's Arlene Richards has more.
Mississippi state solicitor arguing before the Supreme Court that counting mail-in ballots days after a federal election day doesn't violate federal law, but denying Justice Clarence Thomas's suggestion that the state law would allow ballots to be counted even if they were just handed to a neighbor.
I made a final choice when I handed it to my neighbor. But it's a final choice within an official state process, Justice Thomas.
Well, I think the ballot is an official state process. Is that enough?
Not enough to be known in a public way to the state. That happens when it is parted with and submitted through mail to the appropriate election official. Then it's final.
The Republican National Committee challenged the law in 2024 because they believe that counting ballots after Election Day threatens election integrity.
The federal statute does require voters to submit their ballots to election officials on Election Day. Must be cast by Election Day, and that the Election Day is the day to conclude and consummate the election through a final selection.
The state's attorney is arguing that there wasn't any mail-in voting in 1845 when the federal election day was set. But throughout history, states have changed election practices without any challenges from Congress. Justice Brett Kavanaugh pushed back, saying only recently have mail-in ballot laws changed.
It only became widespread to allow it to be mailed by Election Day in more recent years, and that the predominant approach was to require receipt by Election Day throughout the historical practice you cite until very recently. How are we supposed to think about that?
Justice Sonia Sotomayor pointed out that Congress has allowed states to apply their own law to mail-in ballots.
What do we do with Congress saying process in the manner provided by law for absentee ballots in the states involved?
With respect, Justice Sotomayor, that's why you have to remember, not focused only on the federal general election, which is the only thing where Congress has specified a federal deadline. So it makes perfect sense.
You would think that Congress would say, you know, with respect to the deadlines, that there's no separate federal requirement, X rule. And with respect to the deadlines, that there is a federal requirement, Y rule.
The case comes as candidates for the Senate, House, and local offices are ramping up their 2026 campaigns, and at a time when several states have adopted similar mail-in ballot laws that count late ballots. If the Supreme Court rules against Mississippi's ballot law, it would impact races across the country. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And here at NTD, we have a very special worldwide premiere coming up tomorrow when Shen, a world-renowned dance company dedicated to reviving traditional Chinese culture, becomes the target of an international campaign of pressure and propaganda. Two young brothers must find the courage to stand firm, and we're bringing in those brothers right now, Jesse Browdy and Lucas Browdy, who are both dancers with Shen Yun. Jesse, Lucas, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for having us. Good, how are you?
So I'm doing well. Jesse, from what I understand, your journey from an athletic teenager to a principled Shen Yun dancer is really, you know, the emotional heart of this film, right? When did you first realize you wanted to become a dancer, Jesse?
Well, it was probably back in the spring of 2018 when I saw the Shen Yun show. And this was the first time I saw Shen Yun after I started dancing, and so I understood a lot more of the show than like when I watched it when I was little, and a lot of the programs like moved me to tears like several times, and it was from that day on that, you know, I kind of like promised myself that I wanted to be a part of this. I wanted to be something like a part of something like much bigger than myself, and I wanted to be a part of Shen Yun.
So Lucas, Jesse is saying he wanted to be a part of something much bigger than himself. You followed in your brother's footsteps, also joining Feitan Academy of the Arts and ultimately qualifying to dance with Shen Yun. So I want to hear from you now. Tell us, what does it take to become a Shen Yun dancer?
Well, because I guess it's kind of part of being a little brother where you just kind of just follow along with the family. So for me, I kind of just like went with the flow. You know, my brother's doing this, so I might as well. I don't have anything else I want to do in life, so I kind of just followed him. But in the end, right, being an artist, you have to follow your own path. You can't just be reliant on others. You have to, as an artist, you really need to take a deep dive into the craft you're doing and, you know, hone it to perfection. And so that does take a lot of perseverance. I guess about perseverance and being disciplined is all something you need to experience as an artist. No matter if you're a professional athlete or even like whatever profession you do, you need to have not just the drive to do it, but the heart to persevere through it all. So it's really kind of just drilling day by day, going into the field, being on stage, being in a classroom, rehearsing every day, and really finding your own heart to persevere through, a lot of the challenges that come.
Right, it's about walking your own path. But it seems like, Jesse, you set a great example for the family. So I want to ask you, Shen is one of the top elite dance companies in the world, right? And receives glowing reviews wherever it goes. But since its inception, and especially in recent years, Jesse, it's been under attack by the Chinese regime. From what I understand, you both have experienced this firsthand. So can you just tell us a little bit what happened?
So aside from the huge like entourage of trucks almost blaring like propaganda against us outside the theater in Shibuya, we've also experienced, as I said before, the similar kind of interference with outside the Lincoln Center, as well as bomb threats literally everywhere across the world. Like we've had bomb threats at the Kennedy Center, we've had bomb threats all across America, all across Europe, all across Asia. And basically, and sometimes when we're at the theater, we can actually see evidence of this, where there will be like security personnel on site with like trained canines kind of like roaming through the seats and like kind of like sniffing for, evidence. And yeah, so those are just some of the attacks that we've had on our company.
So Lucas, you were talking about earlier perseverance, dedication into this craft, into this art. I don't think it would be an overstatement to say you put your life into this. So when you're faced with this kind of interference from the Chinese Communist Party, what is your experience like?
Well, for me, one thing is we actually have a very good security team with us 24/7 at the theater, always looking after us. And even though a lot of times we're faced with a lot of threats and, a lot of these bomb threats, a lot of like messages to the theater trying to cancel performances, usually we always push through them and persevere through them. And to kind of know that what you're doing is right. And society kind of needs the show, in a way. And when you're faced a lot of like, pressure and threats trying to stop you, you kind of have this will to just keep going because, sometimes what the world needs is good and you just have to put it out there and nothing can stop you really.
So Jesse, now I want to hear from you. Lucas is saying the world needs this show. I can't help but think, what keeps you motivated through all this? Not just the interference from the Chinese Communist Party, but obviously you have a very intense training routine, more intense than most of us could even dream of doing. What keeps you motivated?
I guess sometimes you kind of just take a step back and like kind of appreciate the magnitude of this is because part of our show is not only reviving 5,000 years of this beautiful traditional Chinese culture that was almost once destroyed, right? That's part of what we're doing, but another part of it is exposing the persecution of Falun Gong practitioners in China and really other like just all peoples of belief and just like these violations of human rights, right? And what we're doing, I guess, is essentially we're giving a voice to all of the practitioners and peoples of belief in China who have no voice. And I feel like once you kind of step back and absorb like kind of like the magnitude of this and appreciate like what a noble thing this is, yeah, I guess that's one of those things that keeps me motivated.
So Lucas, having gone through all this, what has it taught you? What have these experiences taught you about perseverance and just keep going forward?
Well, I guess perseverance is kind of something everyone learns through in life, no matter if you're a student, if you have a job to take care of or a family to take care of. It's kind of that heart of not everything's going to work out. You're not going to succeed at everything. You're going to fall. It's going to be tough. But, especially through dance and learning this early on in life, I can kind of take out this lesson that I learned of like, no matter what happens, you just keep going. If it works out or not, if you fall, if you fail, you just get back up and you put your head down and you keep going. It's like, especially through dance, I guess it kind of taught us this, but it's something you can take on for the rest of our lives. I feel like it's a very important trait that we learn through dance and we'll use in the future.
So Jesse, of course, it goes without saying that your story of dedication and perseverance is extremely inspiring, and it's especially nice to see as an example for young men these days. So talking about your film, Unbroken, what do you hope viewers take away from it?
Really, I hope the viewers can get like our perspective, like what we are, who we are as Shen Yun dancers, as a company, as people. I really hope that people can get like really understand, you know, kind of the heart that we put into this.
So Lucas, what about you? Anything to add to what Jesse said?
I agree because if you have other media covers, I mean, they're not necessarily, I'm not saying they're wrong, but they kind of have more of a one-sided take. They don't really show a lot of our voice, I guess, personal experiences of people who still are at Shen Yun, and kind of like what I think hope this film can really do is really just show the other side of the story, kind of just show who we really are, what Shen Yun's really about, and kind of just being able to give a whole new point of view the world, I guess, because this is the first documentary covering Shen Yun. You know, it's pretty special because no one really has seen this side of Shen Yun before, and I really hope it just kind of clears things up and we present information in a way where the audience can decide for themselves, you know, what Shen Yun is really like. And on top of that, it goes deeper, right? There's deeper values to this film. It's kind of like under pressure, how can you persevere, like you said. On top of that, it's kind of in American society. Since American society is so strong on freedom and liberty, right? How come people who want to express their faith or their, let's say, performance, right? Why is it getting shut down? Maybe it's a good chance for people to reflect on like what really America's about and kind of just how America being able to speak freely, being able to put on a show, how come it's, you know, being faced with so much threats? It's kind of maybe in a way a little bit of like, is this really what America wants to be?
Yeah, and I think the film really portrays that very well, what you just said, Lucas. And I just want to say congratulations on the film. Thank you for sharing your story with us, Jesse, Lucas, and all the best for the rest of the tour for you guys. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Yes, thank you.
Unbroken, the untold story of Shen Yun premieres on NTD tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. The screening will be followed by a live Q&A with executive producer Steve Lance. Before the premiere, you'll be able to see a special preview featuring conversations with Shen Yun artist and investigative journalist Joshua Phillip, who's been covering the Chinese Communist Party's transnational repression for over a decade. But first, here's a look at the trailer.
I just had a few questions regarding your coverage of Shen Yun.
I'm not going to do point-by-point rebuttals.
Have you heard from the New York Times yet?
No. In fact, when it came out, I was like waiting for them to call me, but nothing.
The New York Times still has this agenda-setting power. Once they decide what the story is, it's kind of an uphill battle.
We'll have to see where this takes us.
Why are they doing this? What can I do to tell people our side?
For the past 5 years, I've toured the world with my brother by my side.
But never would I have imagined what battle I joined.
That's completely not what it is like here.
How much more of this are we going to be able to take? It's particularly hard for me to read because I have 2 young daughters at home.
Have you seen the show before? These weren't ordinary citizens. How did you stumble upon him?
How many? 92,000 articles.
How are you going to write an article trying to do an expose or investigation when you're not even talking with any of the health care professionals that are treating the performers?
That really kind of blew this wide open.
There's something much bigger going on here.
They're calling out Shen Yun Performing Arts for precise strikes. This persecution has come to America's shores.
This was done with the purpose of the tire exploding on the highway.
Hey, buddy. You guys are okay? We're defending those we love.
Again, the premiere is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern right here on NTD. Don't miss the worldwide premiere of Unbroken, the untold story of Shen, followed by a live Q&A session. And be sure to tune in a little earlier for our exclusive preview of the film.